You're on. Good afternoon. This is a candidate meeting with candidates from West Virginia House of Delegates, District 39. This is a Gazette Mail candidate forum. I am Kelly Merritt, editor of the Daily Mail opinion page. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. And here we're talking about issues in West Virginia and your stance on those issues for the readers and for the voters to learn from. I'm Jake Zuckerman, politics reporter here.
I'm Field City editor.
I'm Donna Miller, I'm the Gazette opinion page editor.
I'm Chris Dorsch, photographer.
Yes.
Now, candidates, if you would, take about a minute to introduce yourself and tell us why you're running, and then we'll start questions.
Yes, my name is David Holmes. My nickname is Woody. I'm running for the House of Delegates District. I live in Sissonville. I'm a lifelong resident of Sissonville. I'm running because I see a significant change needs to take shape within our society today and within our government. So that's why I'm running.
Make sure I'm coming through to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Dana Farrell, running as the independent candidate in this district, and I am a pretty much lifelong resident of Sissonville area, graduate of Sissonville High School. In fact, Dana and I are pretty close to neighbors and known each other pretty much since school, right?
Yeah.
And but I'm big on development and building up communities. I helped found the Greater Sissonville Development Council about 14 years ago, and we've worked to build that community, change the image of Sissonville, and build it up to where it's a good place where people want to come live. I want to continue to do that. I want for Sissonville, with the entire 39th district, and really I want to see changes in West Virginia. We have a mass exodus of our young people and our brain drain. People want to call it out of state. I want to flip that around. I want this state to be an attraction. We're pulling young people in here and families from Ohio and Pennsylvania. So, but it's going to start in 39th district. That's where we're going to start at.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sherry Lewis Malcolm, and I'm running for the House of Delegates in the 39th district also. I am presently the delegate in the 39th district. I have decided to run because I have a love for West Virginia. I decided to run because I have a dream for West Virginia. I know that we can bring commerce back to West Virginia. I've worked for 5 state agencies, and I see the waste. I know where the waste is, and I believe that I can help bring that under control. I think the legislature is doing a wonderful job at this point, and I'm proud to be a part of it. But we need to continue to work. I've been a resident of New Shores area for 45 years, and that, of course, is in our district. I'm getting to know the people in Sissonville very well, and they are wonderful people. I have 5 different petitions for people who have bad roads and flooding problems, and we are working diligently to help those people with the Department of Highways, and we've also attended meetings for the county commission. So we're very, very, very much involved. If I'm working for me, I'm working for you. I'm working to keep my children in West Virginia. I have 1 here, 1 left. I have 2 grandchildren. I want to stay in West Virginia, 1 at Marshall and 1 at GW. We need to keep our educated people in West Virginia. So that's why I decided to run for the House of Delegates.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now, Mr. Farrell and Mrs. Malcolm, you both noted that there's a huge population exodus going on here. What can you do from the legislature to A, stop that, and B, build up a stronger economy to keep people here?
Well, thank you for asking me that question. It's going to be a hard thing to do. What we have to do is encourage from junior high to high school on different ways to educate our children. Not everybody is meant for college. We need to provide more jobs in the fields of plumbing and electrical and all of these different fields. They're leaving for better money. I have 1 child who left because she could double her salary in Tennessee. If we tell children that they can make a difference and they don't all have to go to college, so we have to create these jobs, and the Development Council is out doing that. But we have to teach them while they're going through school that they need ethics, they need leadership, they need to have the opportunity and the thoughtfulness to plunge on through things. When you start off in grade school, you're the little one in the community and everybody's babying you, but by the time you get to the top, the big man on campus, guess what? You get to start over again in junior high. And then you get to start over again in high school. Then you get to start over again in college, and guess what? People get to do it again in life. But we have to teach them that they can do that. I think the legislature, the people in the legislature are working towards education and trying to get these communities to think about helping all their children.
To follow on that, I mean, how does that manifest itself in an actual policy? What bill is going to come out of the legislature that's going to affect that change?
I don't have an answer for that. I wish I did. I'm very, very new at this, and I'm learning with every step. I think that we can produce bills that will ask our communities, whether we're a business or whether we're a teacher, that you find a way to keep them here. You find a way to keep them out of college. I mean, out of prisons and into our colleges. We can find a way to do that. I don't have a particular answer to that.
Okay. I'd like to, obviously, Ms. Malcolm made some good points, but I'd like to expand a little further. And in my experience, in working with young people in high school students most of my career, I find that one of the biggest problems is that we have, and at state capitol, haven't identified why the young people, why young families are leaving in particular. And one of the first things it's easy to do look at is that well, we don't have the jobs and opportunities here, but that's not necessarily the case. In fact, I had a conversation with the governor just last month, and one of his points was that we have jobs, and we're getting in the world, but they're still leaving. And what I'm finding is they're looking for a quality of life. They are looking for opportunities and a leisure type of life that they can go to Charlotte, Columbus. And there's other young people there. There's leisure activities for them to do. There is a different way of life that, for whatever reason, hasn't come together, hasn't materialized here. And so, Jake, your question, what exactly can we do about that? One of the things I look at is just like we did in Sisseton when we put the sidewalks in after the development council. And right now, the young people, they want to replace the track around the football. For those are things in the evenings, the young people and families want to come down and do those things. Memorial Day weekend, I went up to my sister-in-law's wedding in Morgantown. We stayed there on the waterfront place around. And you look at the riverfront, how they changed that and what they've done over in Huntington, Pullman Squares. And we're starting to do those kinds of things. I think that those other cities and the bigger cities are looking for or doing, and the young people are looking for, but we really don't have a comprehensive plan. And so, Jake, I don't think, like I said, they haven't identified the problem, let alone come up with a plan to address it. I don't think it's something we're going to change around in a year, but in 5 to 10 years, I think, if we identify it and we pull this, we have a lot of smart people in the state, just in this community alone. If we can identify it, come up with a comprehensive plan, and start making the steps it's going to take, then we can turn this around and not just stop our young people from leaving. Like I say, I want to be the Colorado of the East Coast. I want to say, West Virginia, with our natural beauty and the things that we have, we can really take this to another level. And like I said, it's going to start with identifying exactly why they're leaving and then coming up with a comprehensive plan, bringing people together. One of the things I looked at was I know next year the Futures Fund is coming online, and I know we've been able to look at what we've done with the school buildings around the state with the SBA. I'd like to see a similar type of push with a fund that focuses, maybe it comes from some of the new sports betting money. We could have a super fund where more communities like we did at Sisseton Rayburn put the sidewalks in or replace their track. I mean, our schools, our communities should have the best facilities and leisure activities of anything if we've got a fund like this to pull from. So I think we can do it. There's going to be some opportunities there as our states start to look, turn itself around financially and surpluses. Look at some of these. These would be capital improvements that are going to be there for years to come that all ages, and especially the people looking for.
Go ahead and pull the microphone base, but that's a multi-directional microphone, so it should be fine just between the two of you right there.
So it sounds like you're talking about improving public spaces.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, Jay. I agree with both those folks. I think the key to all of this is education. The company I work for, we hire a lot of engineers. and they transfer in and out of here. When they come here, the first thing they want to know is, we need to look at your education system. We're going to the best schools. That drives them to come here. A lot of these folks who do come here love the state when they get it. They love the way it looks. They love everything about it. I mean, it's close to Charlotte. It's close to Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Columbus. But they're looking for something that their kids can get a hold of. They're looking for technology-based training, such as coding, those things like that. So our education system now does drive a little bit towards the crafts, like your pipe fitters and your millwrights and electricians. We need those folks. We also need folks to do coding, and write programs, and do technology-based type of education. And really, our education system now, I would believe, is driven to that. I mean, we have good technical schools, but they're not what we would call it tomorrow. They're not what you would see in Charlotte. They're not what you would see in Richmond. So in order to keep our kids here, I think we have to focus a lot on our education. And I pretty much hung my hat on that and helping the education system in this state. And I know funding has a lot to do with that, but we can work around that as well.
Are we gonna go more in education?
Sure. Well, yeah. Y'all are, third or fourth meeting we've had with House of Delegates standards, and everybody talks about education. Yet, West Virginia still has, I don't see a lot of innovation in education. I don't see a lot of opportunities. West Virginia still has 55 county school districts. West Virginia still does not allow charter schools. West Virginia seems to have a very bureaucratic and centralized public education system. And so my question is, one, if you believe the statements I just made are correct, what can West Virginia do to improve those? And if the statements are not correct, how can we still improve our education? But specifically, let's talk about county structure in charter schools. Whoever wants to take it.
Well, I'll go ahead, if I may, and start that. I'm a firm believer in the fact that we do not need 55 school boards. And I don't think that the school boards have to have total control. The unions are controlling them, and then that's fine, we need unions and all of that. But just like the issue we were speaking about before this came on, they changed the hours of the students coming and going. You've got little kids, grade school, they're out there in the dark before they get on the bus, and as Mr. Farrell said, we wait till winter time hits, and they're out there. That it's blocking up the community roads. And there was an accident. They couldn't get back and forth. They couldn't get off of the hill. So they were interviewed. They were asked, what the school board asked, in your opinion, what do you think about the starting times? And they totally ignored it, went right back to what they wanted to do. They're in total control. They need to have some legislative laws brought down that they must pull the community, not just the teachers, but the parents of these students who are going there. You can't get a good education if you're tired. You can't get a good education. It's not about bringing them in and giving them all breakfast. It's about educating them. When you bring them in and they're tired, like Mr. Farrell said, you bring the kids later in high school, they just stay up later at night. We're working on the wrong end of this situation. The situation is to get the parents involved. You could save a lot of money and give a whole lot of teachers raises if you didn't have 55 school boards and all of them running independent unless they want to get together to run their show. But they're running the wrong show. Okay? They're running the wrong show. They are not worried about the education level of our children. They're interested in getting them there on time and back on time and lunch and breakfast, and that needs to stop. We need to get qualified teachers. I am all for merit raise. I'm all for all the teachers getting a raise in West Virginia. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. But just throwing money at them doesn't make them a better teacher. And if they're afraid of charter schools, ask them why they're afraid of charter schools. Because the best teachers are going to go to that charter school and teach, and we're going to be in even worse condition. We have wonderful teachers. We have wonderful people. So we need to give them the opportunity and pull back these school boards from slacking their hands.
So how do we decide which school boards are consolidated? I don't think any school board wants it to be the one.
Well, that's absolutely, that's the one. I think that's a good question. So let me think about that for 30 seconds here. It's going to have to be a collective decision on researching what schools are doing the best, what counties are doing the best, which ones are failing the worst, how can we help that? Can we loan them teachers to go over here and consolidate, put 3 or 4 counties together and take the best from each one of those counties and once you research it, put this employee here, this and make a consolidated one. If you're not doing your job, then you need to be out of the job, okay? If I'm in the private sector, which I have been, if I did not work, I was fired, okay? And, the community of the school teachers, you've got tenure, and if you're, what the teachers tell me is, if you mess up, you move up, and I'm being polite.
Well, I've spent most of my life and career in the classroom, so obviously, and many of the things you said, I would agree with. There's needs to be accountability. I don't know about consolidating counties. That's something to look at. And Jake asked me the question. It all sounds good in theory until the reality hits the road. Who's going to get consolidated? But there is no doubt that, I don't hold me to these numbers, we are around 15th in the nation per capita in education spending, and yet 48th and 9th in compensation to our educators and things. So where is it, I know that the question we have in corridors of the classrooms at South Charleston High School, where's that money going? Because we're certainly not getting it in materials and in compensation here for our classrooms. And so one of the first things I'd like to do is see a accountability check financially on the school system from top to bottom. Where's the money coming from? Where does it go? And I'm not saying anybody's wasting it. And I'm not here to say, but let's take a good look at that. It needs to be done periodically so that we don't have problems. I have seen, I can tell you this being in the school system, I've seen, for lack of a better word, fad approaches to education come and go in this county. I've got 3-ring binders on my shelf collected from where the county spent up to $1 million or more on textbooks and programs and software, and for a guest speaker to come in here from Washington State to tell us how to do our job, and then it runs its course for a few months or years. Carnegie Math would be one of them in there, and then we went through Common Core, and my daughter was bringing home math that would just made no sense to me, and at the end of the day, we come back to good teaching good math is just good math. And there's things, and we looked at the math scores here just a couple of weeks ago that came out across the state, and there's some ways I would question the way that was drawn up. But at the end of the day, they tested low, and so what's going on? And I would add another thing too. And Sharon brought up a good point: is you can't lay this all on the teachers in the education system. We have a lot of culture does eat strategy for breakfast, as they say in the business world, and we have 2 types of kids coming to school. I had a gentleman come, a guest speaker come in over at our school about 3 years ago, and he made a good point. He said, when kids come to school, their brains are in 1 or 2 modes at any given time. They're in learning mode, they're in survival mode. And unfortunately in this state, because of the drug epidemic, because of the family, attacking the families and things that we have, a lot of our kids are coming to school in survival mode. And that's a tough thing to, we end up being more of a nurturing setup and situation in our schools than we should have to be instead of educating. So that's something that certainly we're going to have to take a closer look at if we're going to be successful. And I guess the key thing we're all looking at is to be more efficient with our education system.
I would agree. I think when it's consolidating school boards, that would be a very complicated task. And I don't think it's something for me or my other people said here. I said, how would we do that? I mean, you really have to sit down and think that one through. There is a lot of waste in our school boards, all of them. We read it every day in the paper. You may have 1 school superintendent, 5 assistant superintendents. But to sit here and say how I would do that, I would have to think that through, and talk to some folks on that. You did mention charter schools. I'm opposed to charter schools. I have a lot of folks in my district, and we're in rural areas who believe charter schools will take our tax dollars to create for much of a private school. And I know that's not always the case. That's how it's viewed. And I'd rather see our efforts put into our public education. I'd like to see folks take some trips to like Texas, where they have, or their education is stellar. I mean, at the high school level, they're teaching kids to drive You know, we need to think along those lines. And I hate to use this cliche, but they really need to think out of the box here, because we're stagnant and it's not moving. So we need to move forward. We really do.
Can I follow up there, David? The charter school thing, I would lean toward with him, and being a public educator, until you get in hallways, and spend some time and some days, not just an hour or two in our public schools, especially our high schools, and see what's going on there. There is some great, despite all the numbers and the math that comes out in the media, there are some great things that go on in our classrooms every day. And until you're there and experience it, the concern in public education with charter schools, and in theory, they do sound good. And in practicality, they could even work some. But where do you start? Who goes? Who decides who gets to go and who gets left behind? And there again, almost it comes down to consolidated counties until the reality of it comes down. And we certainly don't want to get into haves and have-nots in communities. And we look at that. Why right now even some of the private schools that we have, they're wow, look what a great job they're doing educationally. But if you look at the student, they can say, hey, we're accepting this student, but we're not accepting this student. We decided years and years ago in this country to educate the masses, and didn't care what background, like I said, you come from, what your situation was, we're going to educate you. And I'll take that setup and that system over what Japan or China or anybody else is trying to do, where they're selecting kids that they're going to put forward any day. I think it's better for society, it's better for culture, and I think we're a better country for it.
Yeah, in the defense of charter schools, which I am definitely for, like you say, lots of people like say, well, you're taking the money away from public schools. No, you're not taking money away from public school. Per capita, each child is given X amount of dollars every school year. So let's say that school number A has 300 students and 25 of them want to go to a different school. Then they lose the money for those 25. They still have exactly the same amount of money that they need for those students. Now, the only negative thing that they could argue is they might lose a teacher. Well, that teacher is probably going to go over to that charter school or to some other school. It's a matter of choice. In America, we're supposed to have choice, and our choices have been limited and we're funneled into the public school system. Well, when I was growing up, that was a good thing. I mean, we had 99 good teachers and one bad one, and they were highly educated and they were dedicated to us. And now those teachers are kind of far and few between and leaving us because of the pay and the system that's going on. So if you give people a choice, what have you got to lose? It's your choice, it's my choice. And we should be able to do that choice, whether it's homeschooling or charter schooling. You're not going to lose any money from a public school that for that student, you only get X amount of dollars for 350 of it stays there. If you leave away, it goes somewhere else. But we need to have that choice. And if the charter schools prove to be more educating of their children, then maybe our public schools can learn from that. And we can say, okay, we need to improve this, we need to improve that, because over here they're doing a better job than we are. But if we don't allow it, we'll never know, will we?
I want to comment on that. If I may. The drawback today is kids who go to Mary Snow Elementary will not have a choice. That's all they got. Kids who go to Cicero Elementary, that's all they got. They won't have that choice. So we need to see teachers in those schools that they're qualified teachers and they work hard. They work. They as a teacher. I know teachers that leave at 4 and grade painters at 1 o'clock in the morning. And then they're also the parents of some of the kids at that school. My daughter and my wife, they tutor for Robert Center, and people just need to really go there and see that. Because those kids don't have a chance.
I disagree with that statement, because you can't say that everybody in a particular school cannot have the education level that they would like to choose another school. They're in that school because that's where they're supposed to go because of our system. You put them all in a block and say they're all, in a situation where they can't get out. That's not true. You haven't allowed them out. Give them a choice.
Okay, what about transportation?
Okay.
I think we're going to move on. Yeah.
We've heard from all of you on that, so thank you very much. Can I jump in here and
Yes.
follow up? Canal County access levy, for or against?
I'm for it.
For
Okay, thank you.
That was
Next.
easy.
Mr. Burrow, you touched briefly on the drug epidemic. I'd like to ask about that. Obviously it's a statewide problem, but it's different in every area of the state. I'd like to ask you all just how you view it in your district and what can be done at the state level of government to help address the crisis.
Sorry,
Sort of, yeah.
Okay, I see it certainly, as I mentioned, it's affecting our education, it's affecting affecting, as David said, our business opportunities and business want to locate here. I can't find a qualified workforce because of the drug epidemic. But I think most importantly, it's affecting our neighborhoods and our families and cultures. And I speak firsthand, and I'd say for privacy, I won't mention names here, but I've had it affect my family firsthand, so I've lived it. I currently live in it. Nobody wants to be caught up in a drug epidemic situation. Nobody says, I want to be an addict or I want to be this. But it happens. It's reality, and it's no respecter of finance, it's no respecter of religion and community. So we need more help. One of the things I've found firsthand is the families need more support, because if the families don't have good education, good support, the user has no chance. Because a user and addict will single out the weakness in the family and exploit that weakness to keep that addiction going. And when we see the money that's through the drug and opioid epidemic, it goes out, and a lot of it's going to research, or it's going to some specialist, whatever. The reality is we need boots on the ground and working with families and communities to help them know how to deal with their loved ones that are caught up in this. Now, that said, too, there's another side to this ugliness, and that is what we see happening here on the streets of Charleston and things, where you have transits, and that's a different situation than we have, where people are coming in and exploiting the charity situation that we have. But what's affecting our communities most, I think, in West Virginia is right down in our neighborhoods, it's in our subdivisions, it's in the hollows. It doesn't care where it goes. And it's almost everybody, and I'm sure in this room, I'm not the only one that has a family member or somebody that's affected by this.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would agree. He and I live within the rocks of one another, basically. And that is the single most troubling thing that's happening in our community. I mean, I've got commercial property around 21. I get phone calls this morning that the door frame is proud off of. I go out and find needles in the parking lot. And you can stand there and watch people walking up and down the road, and they're completely out of it. So, I don't know what the total answer to that is. I don't think anybody does. If they did, we've already done something. But I know Andrew Byrd, I think he proposed like an 8 cent or 4 cent tax on every OxyContin was sold or whatever, to help fund facilities that would help these people. And in West Virginia, we just don't have it. You have to send a lot of these kids have to go to Denver, Colorado, or Washington State to get away and go through this. So, we need to address this, because if we don't, this is really more important than education, because businesses do not want to come here. I mean, whenever you go to a local store, you look down, the lady's got a needle stuck in a tire. I saw that last week. It's bad. So they should run over somewhere. Or you go over here where the old, where the farmers market, that area. And it's not just there, it's everywhere. So, as delegates, all of us really ought to step up and get our heads together around that and not argue about it, but do something. And like I said, I don't know as a person standing here what that answer is. I'm sure we have to do something. But it is the single most troubling thing we have in our district. And I'll say that. And it's touched every single person there. Either know somebody. I mean, in a 7-day period, there was 4 kids who died. They all were school kids.
Like I said, when I confronted it in my neighborhood, I've had my life threatened and my house to be threatened to burn down because I was confronted as the HOA president. So it's, and there again, I don't think anybody wants to be in a situation where threatening somebody's like the drugs. desperate rain will do whatever it's got to do. And the people that are, God bless Mike Stewart, the job he's doing is just turning. But the people that are profiting off of this craziness, to me, are worse than the Taliban, because at least the Taliban's got some kind of religious culture. These people are going for pure profit and off of other people's misery and death. I mean, they're profiting off of it. I mean, I have no sympathy for anybody that would profit off of other people's misery.
I cannot disagree with anything either one of these gentlemen have said. However, I will say that taxing any drug isn't going to help us when the majority of them are coming in illegally. So therefore, you can't hardly tax those. But I live 1 mile outside of the city limits, and I'm very much touched by this also. A young man was found just on my street, a little higher up, in the wooded area behind his home, dead, and then finally for a month or so. It's tragic. It's extremely tragic. But what we have discovered is, I don't care whose insurance you are or whatever, you get 30 days in and that's it. That's all they're going to pay for. And that's not going to help anybody. It doesn't cure everybody. It doesn't even really get it all the way out of their system. So at the legislature, we're bouncing around comments and things like, what about if you have been incarcerated, whether it was for drugs or whether you're on drugs when you get in there, then you're immediately put into a rehab situation, which is not what is going on now. And that we take some of these abandoned buildings, old schools and old office buildings, and make rehab centers out of them and require that they're there as long as it takes. If it's 3 months or 6 months, the state's paying for it anyway, whether you put them in jail or whether they're out on the street stealing or whatever they're doing, we as a community, our taxpayers are paying for it. So let's dump a little more money and try to get these people off of drugs completely. We can rehab them, we can't rehab them in 30 days. And taxing is a great idea. I don't have an issue with that. Although I'm a Republican, we don't like taxes, we don't want to raise them. We would raise them for a good reason. Okay, be happy to raise them for good reason, but the majority of our drugs are coming through illegally. So I just don't think taxing is going to help. I think that better rehab, spending money and resources to get these people completely off of drugs. When their mind is turned around, then they're off of drugs.
Where would you get the money to fund the rehabs like you're talking about?
Well, we have a lot of wasted money in the state of West Virginia. I have worked for 5 separate agencies in West Virginia, and the waste is phenomenal. And I think the legislature, what they're doing right now and checking out these things, they found money to get the teachers and all the state employees a raise. And they didn't raise any taxes to do it because they found wasteful areas in every agency. Now, I know every agency that they took a little money from wasn't happy about that. But I'm telling you, as a person, a retired state employee, that I've seen it in every agency to where it's ridiculous. Their money is here. The money we can find in West Virginia. If we have to raise the taxes, then fine, we'll raise some taxes to do it. I don't have an issue with that part of it. But I'm telling you, as a person who has been at highways and DHHR and economic opportunity, the Office of Judges and the legislature, the waste is phenomenal. Let's rein it in, and we can do that.
If I can jump in here, I mean, a lot of the teacher salaries, that spike was paid for with revenue spikes. And I don't know that that would be a sustainable long-term approach to fund rehab. So, I mean, if you want to raise taxes to build these rehab centers, what tax should be raised?
What revenue tax, what revenue was spiked?
Well, there were the governor made a revenue adjustment of, I think, $58 million, give or take.
He didn't spike it, but he made an adjustment. And the adjustments are that he's taking from here and taking from here to get it. They didn't raise anything, I don't believe.
Well, that was because there was more money coming in state revenue than was anticipated in January.
We have a surplus.
Yes.
Yes.
So is that where the funds for these rehabs should come from?
Well, it may in the future. Right now, what they're talking about using that surplus for is for another increase for the 5% for the teachers and for the state employees. And he's dedicated $100 million, I believe, if my figures are correct, to PEIA to fund that. Well, PEIA had a $44 million surplus themselves this past year. So the money is coming in. If people are being taxed apparently fairly enough, if we have a surplus, So use these surpluses wisely. I'm very, very new at being a delegate, and I don't pretend to know everything, but we can utilize the monies that we have and the monies that are coming in. If taxes are needed, they'll be raised.
I follow up real quick on that. For the record, as a teacher in this extra 5%, if I could donate my 5% if I put the teachers in, I think most of the teachers would be with me. They would be able to put the money toward this problem and fix it. I would gladly do that because it's so great. It's such an issue that affects everybody, including teachers, both in the classroom and their families. And Sharon, I agree with you too. It's not a 30 days. All we can do is detox somebody. You can't rehab in 30 days. So that, you know, it's a more serious problem and a longer term and more cost expensive issue than I think people realize. I just spent 9 years as board of directors at Thomas Health System. I can tell you we have a 30-day detox system. Yeah, really what it is, a detox system over there. And we can't get patients to stay in the system there more than a couple weeks because if they have a job, if they're trying to do anything productive for a family, they can't take off for 30 days to get even detoxed. And so they'll just walk out and it goes back, legally you can't lock them up. So I don't know where you go, but they really, in some ways, they need to be detained. Until you get to a certain point. But it takes the human brain 8 to 10 months to start reproducing the dopamine levels to just have a normal day. So 30 days already done a detox, they're still subconsciously, they think they're well. Oh, I'm ready to go back to work. But they're still secretly craving and looking for opportunity to use. And that's what drug is. It's vicious, it's ruthless, and doesn't care who it hurts.
Well, if Mr. Farrell can talk all those teachers into giving their 5%, I'm sure that the government would be glad to take it back to their rehab centers.
If it's spent prudently.
That's true.
So on the $100 million, you know, and I understand where that's coming, but if I'm not mistaken, if we've got $100 million, 50 million has to go back to the general revenue fund or rainy day fund. They can't dedicate all $100 million to that. And I'm pretty sure that's the way that works. So like you said, it would be hard. It's not really sustainable. You're relying on hoping that your funds will be coming in and you're going to have an excess. And that's not always the case, especially here in this state. I mean, that fluctuates. We could go into the last quarter of this year and have a deficit. So the funding has to come. We can't rely on, it has to come from a sustainable source. And maybe it is, you know, we still have a lot of appeals coming in this state, regardless. I know heroin, everything's is a big deal. We still have a lot of appeals coming in the state. And maybe a 3 cents or 4 cent tax on each bill will do it. You know, I don't know. And I'm not, contrary to popular belief, I'm not a big tax person. And I got a business and I know how it works. And I was a lead maintenance leader for Union Carbide, Dow Chemical. I know what taxes we pay and they're on my issue. So we have to sit down and that's got to be a sustainable funding. We can't rely or hope that we have the extra money.
The sustainable funding is coming from the fact that we have more people back to work and back to work, people pay taxes. And so the surplus came from somewhere. It came from the fact that we have more people back to work. And if we can maintain that and even increase that with our job base, keep our teachers, keep all of our people, then we'll have a sustainable tax force. And that's what is happening. And I believe it's going to continue to happen.
Thank you all. Anyone have one there?
Yeah, let's talk about PEI. Do you have a favorite solution, long-term solution for PEI?
I'll be the first to speak to that. Now that I am in favor of 5 to 5.5% sales tax for natural gas.
Okay.
I really am. I believe that will help with that. I mean, we're setting smack dab on one of the biggest natural gas pockets in the world. And we're building up lines, and I know for a fact that a lot of this, our gas goes down south from the Gulf Coast, power plants down there. I mean, we liquefied 9.8 billion cubic feet of last year, shipping overseas. So, yes, I'm all for gas production, whatever it takes, but I think West Virginia is a huge part of that. I mean, that's a huge drain on our resource. I'm opposed to taxing an increase in corporate income tax, and I do not like the inventory tax. And the reason I don't like the inventory tax is because I ran a warehouse and I know what that does. I mean, it spreads, when you're running something the size of what we have, that's spread out at every business. So to me, that's just a bad tax. And, but I would propose the PEI thing, yes, leave the coal service tax the way it is. And I think that would generate enough revenue in the long term to fix this. Maybe, you know, if I'm elected, I may get in there and look at it and say, woo. But, you know, you're wrong, just assuming here.
Right.
But that would be enough fix.
Quick follow-up there.
Yeah, sure.
The general argument against severance tax and natural gas is just, it's a volatile, it's a boom bust
It's up and down.
cycle. What happens if, say, there's a costs for healthcare go steadily up over the years? What happens if you have a down year for natural gas and an up year for healthcare costs?
Well, right now, you know, I looked at some data a lot, but I have a campaign manager who's a data freak. And she pulled up, like coal. West Virginia ranks number 2 in the nation for coal. And we only count for 11% of total coal in the state. Wyoming was number 1. So we can't rely on that. And as much as we like to say coal is not coming back. So gas is it. And we have timber, that's a renewable resource, but it's limited. And it has its ups and downs as well. One year it'll be high, next year it's not. So I still say, in my opinion, that's what I read. And what's being done in this state, I believe that is a long term. So I may be wrong. 50 years from now, all we go on is maybe all the gas will be gone, but that right now that's all we're looking at. And maybe that'll drive some jobs. But right now, if you take out the jobs that were created for the pipeline, those are all going away within 2 years. We're still at 9.5% loss in jobs in the state. So, you know, it all goes back to education. Maybe people come back and get turned around. But that's just my opinion, and that's how I feel.
PEI fixes. Who wants to go next?
Next, I'm not sure that there is a fix. When everybody says we need to fix PEI, I mean, if we can fix PA, then we can probably fix the national health issue as well. We've got older teachers having more and more procedures and needing more and more healthcare. And healthcare is getting more and more expensive, so that's not going to change. So Jake made a good point there. That's going to continue to do what it does. All we can do is throw more money at it currently and try to fit, it's not even fix the problem, but kick the can down the road or put off the problem for a while. Long-term solutions you can look at, trying to look at insurance costs, pharmaceutical costs, and those things. I know from working in the hospital, where those go, and how crazy it is even for the hospital to try to balance the books. But the big elephant in the room is the aging population that we have here as a state employees and teachers. And that's why I say we have to look at while we're leading our youth, our young families, and turn that around. The young people come in, they're the ones, young people spend money. They buy cars, or buy houses, or spend, and they drive the economy. And you've got to have, if you don't have them, your economy's in trouble. We struggle right now with trying to balance the books back with our natural resources. And as we said, that's volatile. We need people, we need young people in a growth type mode here in the state. We need to look at what's happening and what we can do to turn that around. And these other things, such as PA and other things that correlate with it, can be more addressable if we have a different type of population mix than what we're experiencing here in West Virginia. I would also look at revenue sources. I'll throw this one in, I don't remember for the sake of time. But one of the things that I would like to take a look at, I know it's been talked about at the State House. It hasn't got much leverage yet, but I'm a big fan of geopolitical science and looking at where you're located at on the map dictates a lot about what you can do to survive and move and do as a living. In West Virginia, if we look at where we're at on the geopolitical map in the United States, we're positioned right east, west, and north, south in the mid-Atlantic in a great spot for distribution. But these interstates that run through here, I would like to see looking at putting toll roads on the Panhandle interstates, i.e. one across the eastern Panhandle, 70 across the northern Panhandle. 94, I won't go into that number, but 90-some% of that traffic is out-of-state traffic. So therefore, it really doesn't hit the West Virginia citizen nearly as much. And that's something we can address with the Easy Pass system for West Virginians. That has been estimated to generate between the two interstates nearly $750 million with a B dollars in revenue annually. And that's money that's going to be, it's not as volatile as gas and coal and those things. So there are opportunities. And speaking of gas, I think next year there's the new pipelines that have been so controversial in the news and shut down, start back up. When those go online next year, my understanding is those are going to generate about $1 million a day as extra service taxes for the state of West Virginia. So there again, Jake, it's not going to last forever, but it's how do we invest in it? We just want to throw it in entitlement programs, or we want to throw it, just trying to fix problems that can't be fixed, or we're going to invest it into other ventures that will generate a future revenue for our state. I want return on investment. This road thing that we just spent a lot of money on, if we're going to pave the road up to Aunt Martha's house because the district supervisor lives up and he's paving and put guardrails up there, the road leads nowhere. Okay, but I want to see up in Clay County. I go up there all the time away from Clay County. And you go in there, there's a mountain you got to cross over. How do they have any chance? They're barriered off from the interstate. Well, yeah, this kind of, you have to economically open up chances for growth in the state. And I think in order for us to have revenue to be able to do these, and for young people who want to come in here, we have to create opportunities, and we're not getting return on investment for what we are spending on now. So
I agree with both of these gentlemen and many of their points. However, we need to think about the severance taxes. It's an up and down situation. You've got companies here that may leave if you overtax them, and you have companies that aren't going to come in. And if they don't come in, we don't have jobs. So it's a big question, and a lot of people are looking at it. They're a lot smarter than I am. There's a lot of people on the PEIA board that have been studying this in detail. I think some of the things that we can do is to continue to educate our people, but do it far more intensely. We're talking about the obesity in West Virginia. We're talking about people who smoke in West Virginia. I think PEIA is a good thing because they're offering them like silver sneakers into gyms where you can exercise and encourage them. I think that our school systems can produce people from a very young age by educating them about not smoking, by educating them about how to eat. I don't think that we need to feed them sugary drinks, and I think we need to be real careful about what we give them for lunch. But that education has to go on at home, and it has to go on at home, even through through educating them through our insurance companies. It's very important that they get every test that they need, and I think PEIA has been denying far too many people far too many tests. That's something that we need to talk about, and I think that they are educating the people on that. I think they've studied it, and they've come to the conclusion that PEIA can handle this a lot better than they are. They waste a lot of money in advertisement and printing booklets and telling you how they can't do something. Well, we'd like to have some solutions as to how they can do something, and I think that the legislature is pushing those people to come up with that. We need taxes. We have to have taxes, but the come and go taxes of severance, gas taxes come and go. And yes, we need to build our roads, and maybe that is a good idea. Put a toll road on another highway. But if you're going to do that, you have to make sure that before you do these things, that it is not going to go to tourism. Not that I'm knocking tourism, because I'm working with tourism about bringing jobs, and I'm not knocking them at all. But we have to be careful. If you're going to say, okay, this toll road stuff is going to education, this toll road over here is going to PEIA, period. Or it'll get lost in the future, and somebody else will come along and go back to tourism, and nobody's watching, and now we're wasting our money again. PEIA is a serious fix, and they need a serious fix, and I don't think anybody has the answers, but I do know that we're working on it at the legislature, and they're extremely serious.
Let me just follow up real briefly. You said you didn't care for corporate net income tax. Of course, nobody likes any taxes, but could you explain to me as a business guy why why the corporate income tax maybe isn't less objectionable than say the inventory tax?
Well, when you pay corporate income tax, you're paying, let's use for example, where you have a business or plant, you pay taxable property tax. You pay taxes on steel on your ground, you pay taxes on the equipment, then you pay taxes, your corporate income tax. Then you have warehouses sitting over here for all the parts for those things. And you're paying an inventory tax on it. Sometimes that part may only sit there for 3 years before it's used. So all that's in business world, all that's funnels back into one big lump sum, and then funnel that out to each and every business. So each and every business pays part of that, and that could be a make or break.
Right, I understand that, why you would want all of this, but it seems like paying taxes on net income would be better than all those others,
Oh, I'm
because
agreeing
as your
with you.
income goes down, your taxes.
I'm agreeing with you. I don't think you need to raise it, just leave it where it's at. I think then they drop it.
Yeah, that's what you said. You were opposed to the net income tax at all. You thought lowering the tax was
Yeah,
good for years.
Inventory tax.
yeah, and yeah.
And I'm
sorry.
sorry about that. You know, it goes back to what I said, but if you look at geopolitically where we're located at, we're set up for distribution type businesses that we're thwarted if you're going to charge an inventory tax, they can't distribute anything out of West Virginia.
If you have an inventory tax and you have that in there for 3 to 5 years, you're paying taxes on it every
I
year,
understand.
over and over. And so, you're not buying the property, we're not buying the parts, we're not buying anything, which by the time I'm in Mary Kay Cosmetics, you have a tube of lipstick for 5 years, you've already paid more taxes on it than you did to buy it, and I'm going to lose some money on a tube of lipstick. So inventory tax is not a good thing, I don't believe.
Yeah, I understand that, thank you for that.
Can I start? I didn't clarify. One here.
I mean, so I'm just kind of going with the past years as the example here, but so if we cut the inventory tax, it's about 140 million over 7 years. Some other ideas that I think are safe bets to come up, put in this intermediary court, that's about 12, 13 million in new spending, free community college and technical schools, 30 million in spending. So I guess there's a lot of new spending initiatives out there. And then there's this inventory tax cut, which is a big loss of revenue to counties. So, if new spending is a priority, where's that money going to come from? And if tax cuts are the priority, what goes? What do we cut out here?
We have to balance our budget, certainly, and that's, unlike the federal government, we have to balance the budget. And that's why I say I'm looking, one of the things I'm constantly looking at is ways we can come up with new revenue without saddling on the back and crippling the industry or growing emerging industries. Like everybody wants to jump on the back of natural gas. Well, it's an emerging industry that we want to continue to foster and grow. And not that they shouldn't pay their fair share, but we certainly don't want to saddle the horse with cities to get its legs under it. And but we have other opportunities, like I mentioned, interstates, and we can look at the severance taxes will come off those pipelines. So what are we going to do with those? How we reinvest it? I think any kind of expenditure that gives us the best return on that investment, we need to give it priority over something that's probably a dead end or entitlement project that some representatives want to trade for votes.
Who else would jump in?
Well, that trade for votes kind of threw me. I suppose that may happen. At least it used to.
Yeah, we're all from West Virginia, so
Yes, well, yes, we have to balance our budget. I have a budget. These gentlemen, I'm sure, have a budget. You people have a budget. And I'm very pleased to say that the House of Delegates and the Senate, in their 60 days, actually balanced their budget and gave teachers raise and state employees raise without raising anybody's taxes. And they got it done in 60 days. So they are working on balancing their budget and staying within their budget. I don't know how they're going to come up with all these other programs. I'm not privy to that at this point. They're all good plans. They're all good things that I think we need. If we can balance a budget without raising people's taxes and use our surplus to do that and continue our work base so that we have taxes coming in like we do this past quarter and this quarter, then we ought to be able to come up with some of that. That plus reining in the waste that we all know is existing in every department in West Virginia.
There's other ways everybody has an opinion of how we can raise money. And it goes from taxing the roads to legal, medical marijuana to a range of things. This state really, what Dana says, this state really is in a unique position here because of where it's located and because of natural gas. We're within 650 miles of this population east of the United States. On the Gulf Coast, where we're getting hurricanes and a lot of issues with storms, these areas are being looked at for stuff like crackers and plants like that. West Virginia can sit down and work with our economic development, work with some of these companies, offer incentives, and build something like that. That would, one of those, if you ever seen it, would be a game changer for the state. We do have a couple of deep water ports set on the Ohio River. I mean, it's not Mississippi or it's not Gulf Coast. But if somebody would sit down with these people and offer them some kind of incentive to build here, if we could just get one of those things, it would be a game changer for tax-wise for the state. It really, really would. So we got to think like that, not think small stuff, but think, for lack of a better term, big type stuff. We have the capability to do that. We have the places to do it. So, you know, that we need to look at like things like that. I mean, some of this other stuff's great. We need to think big, and that's just my opinion. And I think I really believe we are poised to be able to do that. The right people do the right things.
I'll ask one more wrap-up question, which is kind of specific to each one. And you've actually kind of answered what I was going to ask, but I don't know what you do. Let me throw out questions for each of you first, and then we'll begin with Woody answer. You said at the beginning you didn't like the way the legislature was going. Of course, Sharon pointed out the legislature did get a budget done in 60 days. So at some points you sounded like a Democrat. At some points you sound like a Republican. I was explaining where you thought the legislature was not going so well.
Well, here's what I personally believe: the legislature let the school thing go too far. There was people with certain entities in there that let that go too far and made us as a state look bad. Of course, it rocketed everybody, the whole nation. I mean, it set off a firestorm. And we got the corruption deal that made us look bad. You got the deal with the rise that made us look bad. All that the legislature could control, and they didn't. So I got friends who live in a lot of other states, and they said something. You have a beautiful state, you have beautiful people. Sometimes you make yourself look really bad. And I think this legislature at this time, and I'm not pointing fingers, made us look really bad.
When you said corruption, was that the Supreme Court?
Supreme Court, the rise, look at put that back in there. That Supreme Court. Supreme Court was really bad. If we would have impeached one, that'd been bad. We'd be put off. People say, "What's wrong with you?" So that's where I'm getting at.
Okay. Dana, you got into this race late.
I'm sorry, what?
Looking at when you registered, you got into this race late.
Yes.
There was already a Republican candidate, there was already a Democrat candidate, and you come in as an independent. Why?
I had been asked to do this previously by Senator Harrison when he was there, and he was actually involved with us when we started the Development Council in Sissonville, and followed up with Tim Armstead, some of those representatives that we had there. But we had great representation. To me, I thought I didn't want to. But here we had a situation where there was not going to be any incumbents, and this was the opportunity to step up. But I've been working on community development projects that I've opened up with out there for years now, and it's just I want to build and bring people together and attack the problems in our communities and our state. I think that and now I just see the situation. I heard Tony Greedy talking about coming in, or Hopper Kirschman, going to come in on the radio talking about the factions now in government from the federal to state level, Democrat, Republican. Now it's just gotten so divisive. It's like being a child in a divorce situation where you're being forced to pick who you're going to live with, and the child doesn't want to do that. I want to bring people together. And so I've come to cherish the independent role because I look at it, and there's good people on everybody. We have good people like they said in the state. We need to come together. If we want to get unity is a powerful thing, and that's what we've been able to do in the Development Council in Sissonville to get things changed. There's no reason why we can't start working toward that at the Capitol building as well. And then, you know, because a lot of these issues that I know as a teacher in PIA, we're not going to get it fixed by taking one party out, picking sides on this. We need both parties to work with us on this, and making one out as evil and one as good or bad. You know, I think people are tired. I can hear it. People are sick and tired of it. So I'm in it. I'm a visionary. I see things. I want to get done. I know I can pull the people together. I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke and tell you that I know everything about every subject for sure. As Sharon said, we'll have to consult. Let's get the good people together and let's get the job done.
May I respond to that?
Well, I was going to ask you to respond, and you had said the legislature's doing a good job, so just and wrap up in about a minute.
Sure. Well, I think he misspoke when he said they asked him to run because there wouldn't be an incumbent. I am the incumbent, and I was before you decided to jump in the right race, which you have the right to
Actually, you were
do.
not going to do it. I actually interviewed for the position with the Republican Executive Committee in March
Yes, we all,
before they named
yes,
you.
we did. That's right. But you got in well after there was an incumbent, and that's fine because that's your thing to do. So you're independent, I'm a Republican. I'm going to remain a Republican. Are you going to remain an independent?
I'm going to be a conservative, socially conservative candidate. And
Okay, well, I
progressive
think this is my
business
time. Thank you. Yes or no would be
issues.
good.
You asked me a
All
question.
right, thank you very much. Now, I am impressed with what the legislature have done. Like I said, they gave raises, they did it without raising taxes. As far as being an embarrassment, the people who were up there screaming in the halls brought a lot of embarrassment. The Republicans are in control. They never once said they couldn't have a raise. They said, where's it coming from? People, we have a budget. They have a budget, and they found it. So I think they control themselves very well, at least on the Republican side. I know they're not getting a lot of credit, but if the Republicans are in control, and if they not wanted to give them a raise, they would not have gotten a raise. They did want them to have it, and they got it, and the governor said 5%. That's wonderful because we need it. And as a retired state employee, I'm all for that. So I don't think it was the legislature that brought on the embarrassment for the state of West Virginia. I'm very proud to be a part of that legislature, and those people have done a wonderful job long before I got there. I'm a Republican, and I'm going to remain a Republican.
I missed the one other note now. I had planned on running for this seat in 2017. I had spoke to my dad. My dad was in office, and he was and he encouraged me because I always wanted to do it. But unfortunately, he got sick and passed. So, you know, and then I had folks come back, circle back around and ask me to run. He and I are mutual quite a bit on that. So that's one that he kind of pushed me in that. So.
And I remember Darrell well. He was a wonderful man. And I was also asked by high state officials to put my hat in the ring. It's not something I haven't thought about very often or very much, but I have been the first female doorkeeper and the first female sergeant of arms, and I've seen it, I've watched it, and I'm involved, and I loved it. I decided it was time to get involved.
So if I could follow on something you said people who were up in the halls when they were an embarrassment. Yeah, I can wrap up after this. Do you think that the teachers would have received a 5% pay raise if there were no teacher strike?
No, I probably don't. But I will say this, where were their unions 20 years ago? Where were their Democratic senators and their Democratic House members, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, all the way down to 2? Where were they then fighting for those people? Yes, you have to step out and do something, you know, and they stepped out and did something. I'm not condemning them at all. I'm just saying it got out of hand as far as we were concerned. I'm personally concerned that I've been up there, watched a lot of demonstrations, a lot of people carrying flags and talking, and I have watched and witnessed. You get a whole lot more being nice. You can fill the hall so they can't get through them, just like they did. But it got out of hand with some of the yelling, screaming, and cussing and dancing, and people just kind of lost a little respect for that.
Nope. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your time.
I'd like to apologize because my voice, I've been like chronic.